Chapter 16, Daivasura Sampad Vibhaga Yoga, the Yoga of the Divine and Demoniac Qualities. As Krishna concludes chapter 15 by revealing himself as the Supreme Person, Purushottama, he now shifts the focus to something deeply practical: the forces that govern human behavior. In chapter 16, Krishna unveils the two paths of human nature, Devi Sampad, divine qualities, humility, fearlessness, compassion, self-control, truth, and devotion. Asuri Sampad, demoniac qualities, arrogance, hypocrisy, anger, cruelty, ignorance, and greed. Here, he shows Arjuna and us that life is not merely about philosophy, but about character. Our destiny depends on which qualities we nurture. Psychology sees this as the contrast between constructive and destructive personality traits. Neuroscience links it to the wiring of empathy, fear, and impulse control in the brain. Logic makes it clear: light and shadow cannot exist together. One must dominate. Thus, chapter 16 begins as a mirror to the soul, asking us, are we cultivating divine or demoniac tendencies within ourselves? In verses 1-3 of chapter 16, Krishna declares fearlessness, purity of heart, steadfastness and knowledge in yoga, charity, self-restraint, sacrifice, study of the scriptures, austerity and uprightness, nonviolence, truthfulness, absence of anger, renunciation, serenity, compassion for all beings, absence of greed, gentleness, modesty, steadiness of mind, forgiveness, courage, cleanliness, freedom from envy, and absence of pride. These, O Arjuna, are the qualities of one born with a divine nature. Here, Krishna is painting the portrait of the Devi Sampad, the divine qualities that uplift the soul toward liberation. Psychology explains, these virtues represent balance and inner strength. Fearlessness comes from self-trust, compassion from empathy, and humility from deep self-awareness. Neuroscience suggests meditation and ethical living strengthen the brain's pathways for calmness, empathy, and higher reasoning, literally shaping the mind toward these divine traits. Logic shows just as a healthy seed grows in fertile soil, the soul grows strong when nurtured by purity, compassion, and truth. Thus, Krishna begins this chapter by showing Arjuna the path of light, the qualities that free a person from bondage and align them with the eternal truth. In verse 4, Krishna warns hypocrisy, arrogance, pride, anger, harshness, and ignorance. These, O Partha, are the qualities of those born with a demoniac nature. These are the Asuri Sampad, the tendencies that bind the soul in darkness. Psychology interprets, arrogance and anger arise from an insecure ego. Hypocrisy stems from fear of rejection. Harshness is the absence of empathy. These are patterns that keep the mind restless and relationships broken. Neuroscience shows, constant anger and pride activate the brain's stress circuits, flooding the body with hormones of fear and aggression, weakening clarity and peace. Logic makes it plain. Just as poison contaminates water, arrogance and hatred contaminate the soul. In verses 5-6, Krishna contrasts the two natures. The divine qualities lead to liberation, while the demoniac qualities lead to bondage. Do not grieve, Arjuna, for you are born with divine qualities. Here Krishna assures Arjuna, and through him all seekers, that the path of light is within us. Divine nature is not foreign, but our true essence, waiting to be awakened. In verse 7, Krishna declares, those of demoniac nature know not what to do or what to avoid. They have neither purity, nor truth, nor proper conduct. This is the life without Dharma, no guiding principle, no compass of truth. Psychology explains, without values, the mind falls into confusion, chasing impulses without clarity. Neuroscience observes, when the brain lacks long-term purpose, it defaults to survival instincts, short-term pleasure, aggression, and fear. Logic shows, a ship without a rudder is tossed by every wave. In verse 8, Krishna shares their worldview. They say, the universe has no truth, no foundation, no God. Life is born of desire alone, nothing but lust. This is the philosophy of nihilism, where higher meaning is denied. Psychology calls this the void of existential despair, where denial of meaning breeds reckless living. Neuroscience reflects when higher purpose is absent, reward circuits demand stronger stimulation. Addictions grow, logic affirms. Denying the root of the tree, one cannot expect the branches to live. In verses 9-10, Krishna describes their actions. Clinging to false views, of little understanding, cruel, engaged in unholy works meant to destroy the world, driven by insatiable desire, hypocrisy, pride, arrogance, and lust. They wander in delusion. Here the demoniac nature is fully shown, destructive both to self and others. Psychology interprets, when greed and pride dominate, empathy dies, and violence feels justified. Neuroscience adds, overstimulated desire hijacks the brain's control centers, creating compulsions that never satisfy. Logic proves, fire fed with ghee burns higher, but never quenches its hunger. In verses 11 to 12, Krishna describes their restless state, bound by countless desires, caught in the net of hope, devoted to lust and anger. They seek wealth by unjust means, thinking this alone is life's goal. Here the demoniac personality is revealed as endlessly restless, trapped in a web of cravings and fears. Psychology explains, unregulated desire creates anxiety, as fulfillment always feels incomplete. Neuroscience shows, the dopamine cycle of craving and reward keeps the brain restless, always chasing, never arriving. Logic proves, a thirsty man drinking salty water only increases his thirst. In verse 13, Krishna speaks their inner voice. Today I gained this, tomorrow I shall gain more. I own this, and that too shall be mine. I have killed this enemy, and I will destroy others as well. I am the Lord, I am the enjoyer, I am perfect, strong, and happy. This is the psychology of ego, the delusion of ownership, power, and control. Psychology calls this narcissism, the inflated self-image that hides deep insecurity. Neuroscience adds, power triggers reward pathways like addiction, blinding the mind to humility. Logic illustrates, a bubble floating high boasts of touching the sky, yet bursts with a single touch. In verses 14 to 15, Krishna continues their boasting. I am wealthy, noble-born. Who else is equal to me? I will sacrifice, I will give, I will rejoice. Yet they speak only in arrogance, not in devotion. This is the illusion of superiority, where charity and rituals are performed not for love of God, but for self-glory. Psychology reveals, prideful acts mask inner emptiness. Neuroscience reflects, status-driven behaviors light up ego reward centers, but fail to produce lasting fulfillment. Logic shows, gold-plating iron does not turn it into gold. The inner substance remains unchanged. In verse 16, Krishna declares, bewildered by endless anxieties, bound by the meshes of desire and anger, they strive by unjust means to hoard wealth, thinking only of gratification. Here Krishna reveals the prison of the demoniac mind, shackled not by chains of iron, but by chains of craving and fear. Psychology explains, compulsive greed is rooted in insecurity. The more one gains, the more one fears losing. Neuroscience shows the stress hormone cortisol rises with anxiety and desire, damaging both health and clarity. Logic proves, a man clutching burning coals only burns himself, not the world. In verse 17, he describes their pride, self-conceited, stubborn, deluded by wealth and vanity. They perform sacrifices only in name, without sincerity, against the rules of Scripture. This is false religion, outward rituals without inner devotion. Psychology calls this hypocrisy, the mask of virtue, hiding selfish intent. Neuroscience reflects, when actions contradict inner truth, the brain suffers conflict and stress. Logic shows, painting a diseased tree green cannot make it healthy. In verse 18, Krishna continues, bewildered by ego, power, arrogance, lust, and anger. These hateful people despise me, dwelling in their own bodies and in the bodies of others. This is the deepest ignorance. To deny the divine presence within oneself and others, psychology notes, hatred of others often mirrors self-hatred. Neuroscience adds, chronic anger rewires the brain for aggression, erasing empathy. Logic clarifies, one who spits at the sun soils only his own face. In verses 19 to 20, Krishna reveals their fate. These cruel haters, the lowest of men, I repeatedly hurl into demonic wombs in the cycle of birth and death. Birth after birth, they remain deluded, never reaching me, and sink into the lowest paths. Here Krishna does not speak with cruelty but with truth. Actions shape destiny. The demoniac, by their choices, create their own dark future. Psychology sees this as the cycle of self-destruction, repeating patterns until awareness breaks them. Neuroscience shows, deep conditioning becomes habit across lifetimes, unless transformed. Logic affirms, planting poison seeds cannot yield sweet fruit. In verse 21, Krishna declares, there are three gates leading to hell, lust, anger, and greed. These destroy the soul. Therefore, one should renounce them. Here Krishna distills the root of downfall into three poisons. Psychology confirms, unchecked desire, lust, explosive emotion, anger, and endless craving greed are the foundations of mental suffering. Neuroscience shows lust overstimulates dopamine circuits, anger floods the brain with stress hormones, and greed hijacks the reward system, leading to burnout and misery. Logic proves, a boat with three holes, no matter how fine, cannot reach the shore. In verse 22, he continues, a person who escapes these three gates of darkness, O Arjuna, acts for self-realization, and thus attains the supreme destination. Freedom is not about suppressing, but transcending these poisons. Psychology calls this self-mastery, training impulses, rather than being enslaved by them. Neuroscience confirms, mindfulness rewires the brain to weaken destructive impulses and strengthen clarity. Logic illustrates, once the chains are cut, the prisoner naturally walks free. In verse 23, Krishna warns, He who disregards the scriptural laws and acts according to his own whims attains neither perfection, nor happiness, nor the supreme goal. This is the danger of arrogance. Believing one's limited mind is wiser than eternal truths. Psychology notes. Lack of structure breeds chaos and regret. Neuroscience reflects a brain without guiding principles is pulled by impulses, lacking stability. Logic shows. A traveler ignoring the map easily gets lost in the wilderness. Finally, in verse 24, Krishna concludes the chapter. Therefore, let Scripture be your authority in deciding what should be done and what should not. Knowing the injunctions of Scripture, you should act in this world. Krishna seals the teaching. Dharma, guided by divine wisdom, is the compass for life. Psychology calls this alignment with higher values. Living with purpose, greater than ego. Neuroscience suggests. A meaningful framework stabilizes the mind and fosters resilience. Logic proves, a ship guided by stars reaches port, while one adrift is lost at sea. Thus ends chapter 16, Daivasura Sampad Vibhaga Yoga, the yoga of the divine and demoniac qualities. Krishna has contrasted the light of divine virtues with the darkness of demoniac traits, warned of the three gates to hell, and urged Arjuna to follow Dharma, guided by higher wisdom.